unlocking the collective intelligence with business agility. This is what the talk is about. And then especially that we have to think about this is have to do with more than teams. So maybe we have started to work with agile teams, and welcome. But we have to think bigger. We have to do more stuff than that usually. Now we've got a couple of people coming in. So what are the biggest pains that most organizations have today? I have a design background, I can tell you. And that's why I always like to think about what are the things that people actually have pains in that we can help solve for them. So we create more value and we make people happy. So that's why I like to think about the biggest pains first. And usually in most organizations, and this has probably been talked about a lot, that it might take too long to make decisions. So we might see a need for a change in our plans, and we might need to make a new decision, but we can't make it ourselves. So we might have to collaborate with others, and it might have to travel up in the organization, sometimes down again. And then once we get that decision, usually it has taken too much time. So actually we need a new decision. So this is a big pain for many traditional organizations today. And of course, low ability to plan for the unknown, because this is not how we are doing our planning many times. So we might see that these are the things that, you know, will happen along the way. But once we get started, of course, we will see that there are new things hiding underneath that we actually have to plan for. So working with reality instead of just doing a plan based on what we thought would be there is something that we're not so good at. And we have low organizational capacity many times because we are doing too many things at the same time. So if you're working on 5 things at the same time, 5 projects, 5 different things, and you might be spread up very thin, then you only spend 20% actually delivering value. So of course, this is a big cost in many organizations. Task switching costs then 80% of your time. So instead of maybe pulling more people in, we might have to think about how can we create focus for people. And we have a lack of customer focus. So instead of doing what's actually needed for the customers and listen to them and adapt our ideas for solutions and our plans, we are stuck with what we already promised maybe. And we might think that everyone should have what they asked for. So usually we end up with products and services that have too many features and maybe low usability because we're trying to please everyone in our organization. So if only 20% of your products is actually used, that's what you should be building and not the other 80%. And this is costing a lot of money and it is a big problem. And low employee engagement. So in many surveys across the world, we see this, of course, that maybe just a small portion of the people in the organization actually are fully engaged and of course then feel happy and want to solve customer problems, or they're not being able to solve customer problems and work in the best way possible. So this is of course also a big problem. And inability to collaborate. So if we have different focuses, we are working on different things and we have dependencies between parts of the organization, of course, then it's difficult to collaborate. And this is something that we have to fix as well. So, but maybe you already have agile teams. Wasn't that enough? Didn't that solve all these problems? Maybe it didn't. And of course, it could be different things that makes this happen. But one of the things that mostly is causing this is because we're only working agile within one part of the organization, one silo. So if we have agile teams only within IT, then of course the rest of the organization are still working in a traditional way, doing their planning, resource allocations, and maybe asking for plans and forecasts and things. So we have to translate our planning and a way of working so that they also understand and that we can communicate in a good way. So we are buffering this, and this of course also takes a lot of time. It doesn't really give that much business value. We don't deliver better or quicker to our customers if we're only optimizing within one silo. Instead, it would be better if we could have agility in the enterprise, which means that we work across the organization and we can then work with agile ways of working and mindset in all the different parts of the process, leading to that we shorten lead times end to end to deliver to the customer. So of course, this has to happen on all parts and all levels of the organization as well. So having the leadership and the executives working agile will help the rest of the organization to also do that, because then we have the same mindset, the same cadence, the same language. So enterprise agility means that, of course, we can work across, but also we have a leadership that understands and also run the organization in an agile way. And many times we talk about finding value streams, and I've seen that this has been a tricky thing for many organizations to do that, but finding out where do we start with something, understanding a customer need, or make some kind of a plan for something, and who are the ones who are involved in delivering this to the customer. Those are the people who should be part of a team. And then we remove all the waiting time, which will decrease the time for delivery. So remove all the wait and remove all the handoffs. And this will also mean that we get focus in our team, because we don't have to work on different things all the time. We can work together as a team, which increase, of course, in quality and other things as well, not just lead time. So what can you expect if you have agility in the enterprise? What would that mean? Many times it means that we shorten the lead time a lot, so half the lead time and maybe more. And of course, if you work with smaller deliveries constantly instead of bigger batches, it will be much faster. So a big project might take half the time, but you can continuously deliver stuff that actually increase the value for the customer, short term and also long term. And strategic flexibility. So of course, you can change your plan, you can change what you're working on, and you can switch very, very easily a lot of times. So if you have an agile organization with teams who can take ownership and also change their plan really quickly, you can change the plan for the whole organization. Similar to what happened now, the need that we had now with Corona. Many times we needed to shift the strategic goals really, really quickly to be able to meet the new needs of our employees and our customers. So if you have an organization usually working agile, that's pretty easy to do, because we can change our plans and reallocate and set new goals to our teams and just shift where we are going. And I know that we got some new people who came in after I started. So this seminar is recorded, and if you don't want to be in the picture, you can just turn off your video, but it's really nice to see you guys too. And if you have any questions during the webinar or the seminar here, you can just unmute yourself and ask your question. We can have a little bit of a dialogue around that if you feel that's okay. You can also save your question until the end. And today I'm doing this seminar myself because my colleague Patrick isn't here to help me. He's running a Scrum Master training today. So feel free to join in and ask me questions if you have any. And of course, we get much more innovation because we can do continuous innovation every day instead of maybe just saving that until 1 week a year or 1 week every quarter or something like that. So we can continuously change our plans and talk with the customer and see what they need and solve their problems in innovative ways, because we don't have to maybe stay in the box that we created a year ago. And also we have the people that we need to work with to come up with new solutions, and we might rethink things that we couldn't do if we wouldn't have those people in our teams. So if you bring the right people into the team, you can become much more innovative and in a much broader perspective as well. So not doing all the documentation, not handing over to others, solving problems together, and maybe having people in the same room or digitized like we have now, working together, solving one problem at a time, and maybe visualizing, creating prototypes, and merging ideas from different perspectives. If we have cross-functional teams with people from across the organization, this will create a highly innovative culture, and your teams will become successful in solving problems. And this will, of course, then increase the quality that the organization and the teams can deliver, because they can plan and take ownership for the deliveries, long-term and short-term, and solve problems that might need to be fixed now, but also then plan for how can we solve this maybe in a more sustainable way, and how can we help others maybe to learn from the learnings that we have. So giving the ownership to the teams and enabling them to collaborate will also increase the quality. And of course, it's a lot of fun. If you've ever been part of a high-performing team, you know that it's a lot of fun. And it's also a lot of fun when you get to meet and see the customers and you see that you solve their problems. So this gives value to the individual as well. So it increased the fun level in the organization a lot. And the aim, as always, is to create awesome people. And a lot of times, if we do a transformation and we move people into the teams and we enable collaboration and customer focus, we will see an increase in employee happiness at first, usually after around 6 months, because if you're part of a team, any type of team, you will become at least 100% more happy. So just belonging to a smaller group where you feel safe will increase employee happiness a lot. And then after around a year, usually then you get much more qualitative deliveries. So they will increase the pace of deliveries, and the quality of your deliveries will start to increase. You deliver much more quicker and better stuff. And this will grow your business. So after a year and continuously, if you continuously improve your organization and stick to these principles, your business and the outcome of your business will continue to increase. And of course, if your competitors are not doing this, you will probably outperform them. And if you're working serving the community, and of course, then you can deliver more value for the same money and create more better services for the people that you're serving. So what are the keys then to this collective intelligence? I've of course talked about some of them already. How do we enable this agility? One thing a lot of times that we need to start to talk about is theory X and Y. So how do we look at humans? Do we see them as being those type of people who are not engaged, who wants to just do as little work as possible, and that we have to give them higher pay to be able to do their job? Or do we see them as innovative individuals that wants to help out and solve problems and are creative in their work and actually want to serve a purpose? Actually, these two different views, X and Y, they are just ideas that we have in our heads, because it's the system, the organization, and the structures that are creating the behaviors that we see on the X side. Those individuals doesn't really exist. We could see those behaviors, but it's because we have a structure that is creating this. So instead, we want to see people as this Y type of people, and we want to change the structure so that everyone can become like that. And this is, of course, not something new at all. It comes from the 50s, 60s. Douglas McGregor came up with this theory X and Y. But a lot of times we have to talk about this. We have to enable people to become theory Y people, and we have to have those discussions in our organization. And many times bureaucracy is hindering us to do a good job. So we have a lot of rules, a lot of policies, a lot of stuff that is keeping us from maybe collaborating and deliver value in the best way possible. And the bureaucracy increases by 7% every year. So if you have an old organization, you of course can think about how many of these different restrictions do we have telling us how to do things that doesn't really help us, that has been building up year after year after year. And this is the way that they have researched and found out how many percentage it is that increase every year is how many people work in the organization that has a job to control others. So when we start to work Agile, we want to give control to the people doing the work to make decision, and to the teams to decide how they do their job. And if we are becoming really dynamic and with an Agile mindset and a learning organization, we might also want the employees to be part of the strategy where we're going with what we're doing. So to be able to do that, you need to decrease bureaucracy a lot sometimes. And as Deming said, a bad system will beat a good person at any time. So if you have people not performing well in your organization, it's part of the system. It's not their fault. So they are beaten by the system. So try to help those people to become high performing by removing hindering structures instead. And of course, we need to start with ourselves, and we usually need to start with the leadership team. So if you are in a leadership position, start forming an agile team, a business performance team maybe, where you are responsible of increasing the capabilities of collaboration in the organization, removing hindering structures, and enabling people to collaborate in the best way possible. And this is a system and leadership shift that is needed to happen in the organization to enable business agility. We need to grow people, and when we do that, we will also grow business. So we cannot grow business and results in the organization if we don't focus on the people. And we need to do that by focusing on having transformational leadership. So moving above the red line as often as possible in all leadership positions, of course, in everyone, to be inspiring, motivating, showing compassion and care for people, and acting as a role model. So if the leadership team and the executive team are starting to act as role models and actually doing these things, they will lift all those structures from the organization and enable people to collaborate. And that means that people will flow up and also start to act as transformational leaders. And as you see, we have the X view up there, and we have the X view down there and the Y view up there. If you have the X view on people, you might even have destructive leadership, which is down below the lowest line. And if we have destructive leadership in the organization, it will poison everyone. So that could be compared with having, now it's called a härskarteknik in Swedish. I don't really know what it's called in English right now, but that you're treating people really badly. And this would hurt maybe then the whole leadership team, because people will be afraid of doing something wrong and being punished. So those people usually, as we see in the latest research on leadership, has to be removed usually from the organization to let the rest of the organization be able to grow the people and the business results. And as you see, conventional leadership in the middle here, where we use carrot and sticks to encourage people, to motivate them. That doesn't really work. That's on the X side as well. But instead creating possibilities to actually be able to set the goals for myself, for my team, for the organization, and participate in those activities, and feel and understand the purpose, and meet with the customer and make decisions that deliver great results. Those things will enable you as a leader, if you do those, to become a transformational leader as well. And we will look at a couple of things, how you can do those. You need to start manage the system and not the people. This is many times something that we talk about. So we don't manage the performance of people, we manage the system so they can manage themselves. And you can see this as two different ways of management, that you have the red light, the stop light, telling you when you can drive your car or not. And of course, that's been programmed by someone maybe long time ago, and they don't see what's happening in the traffic right now. But if you are in your car and you know the traffic and how it works, and you have a driver's license, and you come into a roundabout, you can make decisions, and the traffic will flow much more quicker than it does with a red light maybe. So thinking about it as this roundabout where people can make decisions themselves based on rules that you have agreed on, and that they also have the driver's license. You all know about these rules, and they feel safe in driving the car, instead of someone telling them when to drive or not to drive. And enabling a shared view. A lot of times it's very difficult from different parts of the organization to see what's going on. So in different ways, try to help people to understand what's working well, what's not working well, what are other people thinking, and what are we working on, what are we not working on, who needs to collaborate when. So facilitate these kind of activities usually helps people in the organization to take responsibility and to remove hinders, and for the leaders to see what people actually are thinking around things. So this is an example with a lot of sticky notes here. We got different design principles on the left side for how we want the organization to work. And then we got people on the top. So everyone, we can see Annette there. She has put a lot of red sticky notes because she doesn't feel that we are living according to the principle. And then, of course, we can talk to Annette and say, so why don't we do that? What's happening? Why is it so bad? Okay, then we create a shared understanding, and then we can start to solve these problems. And if you see that you have a lot of red sticky notes on the same principle, maybe you should start with that. And those people can probably help you. So this is a good way to enable continuous improvement, which is actually what Agile management is about. And we usually need to map what are we working on, who are our customers, what are our products and services, and this is where we find valuable collaborations. Like we talked about in the beginning, that we need to figure out who is part of the actual process of delivering something. We also need to understand which are the products and services that we work with, and what are the customer journeys, because when we see that, usually we can enable people to collaborate and create a much better user experience across different touch points. And this will create a unified experience for the customer, which helps them then to like your product, your company, and get the most value from it. And so you can map it in different ways, and you need to invite people to do this. And this is 2 examples of activities that you might want to do. And design principles. I talked about that previously in the visualization. Here is an example of 6 different design principles in Swedish. One of them, number 2, the team feel that they have ownership for what they deliver. That's a great principle. Number 12, we have clear goals and the teams have focus. So these are some of the goals or the principles that the people in the organization set and put together over a 2-day workshop, doing a lot of different experience-based learning and coming up with what's truly most important for us right now. So this is an organization that started to work Agile and finding out ways to remove all the silos in the organization. And these were the guiding principles that led them forward. And of course, we need to enable the teams to have both alignment and autonomy. And you've probably seen this picture in many different formats before. So having the leadership and the management to enable people to collaborate up on the top instead of just telling people what to do. Because if we tell people what to do, then we go down below the red line, that graph. We are not acting as transformational leader. We need to be up there, and we need to help people to figure out how to solve a problem. And we need to move from project organization to product management and product organizations. So a lot of times we see people maybe dividing their time, as we saw in the beginning. So you might have 5 different projects. You might be totally exhausted from just task switching and understanding what to do, and always showing up late, and always or not knowing at all what to do, and showing up with an old presentation instead of the new one. And those kind of mistakes really makes it hurt, and it doesn't make you feel valuable, like you are doing a good job. So I had this problem previously when I was working in an organization. I had 7 different customers, and I think I had like as many roles as that, many hats, doing many things, and I felt totally worthless. So this is usually causing it. Instead, we want to create focus for our teams. We want to align them and help them to work with what's actually most important. So finding what are the things that maybe these people can work at. Could be a project, could be a product. But if we help them to get focus, you will decrease the task switching, and you will increase and enable collaboration. It will make it much better for everyone. So you will reach your goals, you will deliver higher quality, and you will be able to do this. So this is usually a shift that needs to happen from traditional management, project management, product organizations, to a product organization mindset. And here is an example where we are trying to do that, or starting to do that at one customer, just trying to figure out what are people actually working on is usually the first step. Mapping everyone, all the different stuff that they are doing that no one really understands, because we have the innovation budget, which someone is running and maybe project managing. And usually then we have maintenance, and then we got stuff that people just come from the side and ask for, and maybe some stuff that people just work on because they think it should be worked on and they want to do that, or maybe they find it, this is actually needed, but no one have maybe the understanding that it needs to be prioritized. So starting to map these things and finding out what people are doing, what are the projects, and starting to shorten that list, make it shorter so that we have less stuff going on at the same time, so we can group people around what's actually most important. This is usually a step-by-step process that could take some time, but if you don't start it, you don't really know what to do. So you have to start pulling the spaghetti in some way. And finding ways of aligning the organization with your strategy. So having this maybe bigger initiatives, bets that you want the organization to work on, this will create alignment. And of course, that will kind of push down maybe ideas and solutions and goals to the people and the teams. And it might not help the organization to innovate in the best way possible. So you need to figure out how to do that, not do too many things of this at the same time. But it could be that you say, it's okay to have one of these bigger things that everyone in the organization actually is involved in once a year or twice a year or 3 times a year or something, but not 3 at the same time. That's not going to work probably. And having teams taking responsibility for different parts of services, products, or projects, this will create autonomy if you give them a clear mission. What are the things that we want to achieve? What's going to be different once this is done? What are the things that helps us know if we're on the right track? So not talking so much about output, but outcome is going to help the teams to replan and rethink and always do what's needed and not everything that was in the plan. So you can deliver those 20% instead of 80% that wasn't needed. And then helping other teams in an agile organization to be able to make it flow and to be able to make the most valuable things come out first, and to help people to grow their capabilities as well. We always need to help each other. We need to have space to do that. So the team needs to have the mandate to also help other teams. This will, of course, both create alignment and autonomy. So it also helps the organization to become much more strategic, flexible, because one team can then focus on some other team's goals or missions or deadlines to help them to reach those much quicker. And the teams should take responsibility for what they delivered earlier, not hand it over to someone else. So responsibility for what's up and running all the time, keeping lights on. And this means that the teams need to have budget to do both innovation and maintenance, and not thinking about what's the difference, because when we work agile, we do a little bit of both all the time. We fix something, we move something in the right direction strategically, and then we solve a customer problem. And these things need to happen continuously in our teams. This is when you have the agility and customer focus on all different levels at the same time. So helping the organization to plan and work like this usually helps a lot. And I've seen many teams starting to work with product management and agile teams, but they don't have this picture. They still have different budgets for different things. They still are resource allocating people in the teams, and it will not work. It doesn't lead any further than having people working and calling themselves a team. You have to start to do these things as well, because then you will be able to have this management and this leadership where teams and people in the organization can solve problems and not just doing what they're told. And different ways of setting goals. There are called different things and might work in different ways, and you might want to find something that works for you and then tweak it. But this is a way of showing where we're going, what are the targets, and how do we know that we're on the right track, and what's most prioritized right now. And we don't want to do this like yearly or 5-year plans, but adjust them continuously usually. So we might have a 1-year plan, but we continuously adjust it. It doesn't stop at the end of December. It will continuously be a 1-year plan. You might call it objectives and key results, or you might have the company bets like Spotify do, which is a different way of talking about and coming up with them. And you might have these missions that you have for the teams that usually comes from these company bets or OKRs. Or you might call it ambitions to action. So you might call them in different ways. You might work with them in different ways, just as long as they help you to have a flexible and dynamic organization that knows where you're going and that they can take responsibility. On the left side, you see an example of some of the objectives and key results that we had at Dandy some time ago. So I think that was around 3 years ago, or something, or 2 years ago. And we continuously update how we do them and what we do. But this is for us to know. This is where we are going as a team and as an organization. And with objectives and key results, usually you say that you should have them very ambitious. And it's okay if you reach 75% or something, because otherwise you don't push yourself enough. So you shouldn't feel like a failure. I know Michael that works here, he feels like it's a total, oh, we're so bad when we didn't reach 100%, but we're not, because we pushed ourselves super hard to reach those goals. And if we didn't have them, we wouldn't push ourselves at all. Maybe we would just all sit back and say, oh, we met 100%, that's great. But reaching the goal, it's not the goal. Actually becoming better and delivering and reaching out and creating awesome people with your customers and people in the organization, those are the things that should matter. And you can, of course, facilitate this. Helping people in the organization to actually set the strategy. Where are we going? And in this case, it's a telecom organization. It's 3 where we facilitated this across the organization so that anyone who wanted could join in different workshops to set the 4 different objectives and key results. And they were just focused on organizational development. They were not focused on the product development, but just how can we become better as an organization? What's hindering us from collaborating, doing what's most valuable, and doing all the things that we want to do to reach the strategic goals that we have. So here, everyone joined in different types of workshops and then continuously worked with it. So that's one way you could do it to also improve the organizational outcome. And you want to set dynamic focuses for teams. So keeping the teams for maybe 6 to 12 months together, this will increase the speed of the team and how they are feeling, and they will become high performing if you coach them, of course. And then you want to find new things that are valuable for the team, or you want them to be able to find new things. If they know what's going on and what the plans are, they can also pull from those goals. So these are the things that we need to do. Our mission for the next 3 months, 6 months needs to be this, to be able to help the rest of the organization to get moving where we want to be. So allocate new strategic goals to the teams, or have them pull those instead of moving people to different new projects. And as a leadership team, we need to also work cross-functional. So we need to have different responsibilities. And instead of, as a manager, I have responsibility for both people and product or technology, I should mainly take responsibility for one of those areas, but I need to collaborate with the other people who will take responsibility for the other parts so that we can become a cross-functional organization. We talk about this as management areas where we have people focus, we have product focus, technology focus, and then process. And process is then helping and improving processes across all these different disciplines. So that's usually an Agile coach or Scrum Master or something that has the process focus and helps the team to collaborate in the best way possible, but also remove hinders and helps all of these different areas to work in the best way possible. And if we are a leadership team that works with teams, we might have 3 or 4 teams that we're responsible for, then our job is to enable them to perform, to become high performing and to deliver what's most valuable, to set clear goals, to help them to make quick decisions, to help them to meet with the customer and to become as good as they can be. That's what we should be doing as a leadership team. And if we are the executive leadership team, we need to help the organization to do this. So this could be a big switch, of course, in responsibilities and roles and what we're doing. But these are principles and guidelines. And of course, sometimes a leadership team that works with delivering team or with the development teams, they might have 3 people, or there might be 4 people or 5 people, but you need to pull those people in who actually have mandate to make decisions, and you need to help them to collaborate as a high performing team. And they should be able to make decisions to increase the performance for the teams that they are serving. And visualizing, I know this is a wet dream for many people, that we want to have this overview over where we're going. So what are the things that we think we will do moving forward, and what are the things going on, and maybe continuously change these plans, but also see from the value perspective, which is the product ownership perspective, product management perspective, how are our investments going, and how are our customers feeling, and how are we moving on with increasing whatever we want to increase for our customers. So looking at the value side and getting the flow from the organization, so we get this leadership strategic area where we can make quick and valuable decisions with the latest information, and not information and looking back on what's happening, but what's happening right now. If we can make decisions on what's happening right now, we can become really dynamic and agile in the best way possible. And then also flow, of course. So how are the teams feeling, and how is it going, and what's hindering them? Are we helping them to remove those hinders? Do we create flow in our teams? Do we enable quick deliveries and quick feedback on things? And how are our deliveries going? Are they going up as we are predicting, if we are working on creating high performing teams and business agility in our organization? Or are we still not reaching those goals, and we should do something about that? So having this leadership view with a cross-functional leadership team that can make decisions continuously and invite people to this area really, really helps to get an understanding of what's going on. Otherwise, the executive team usually don't know what's going on in the teams, because they are managing themselves. They're doing stuff, but I have no idea what the fuck is going on. So helping them to visualize and create this picture usually then helps teams as well, and create close relationships and close the gap between strategy and the operational work and the tactics. And we need to be able to say yes to the dance. So when something's coming up, we should be able to jump on that and, oh yes, we want to work with that customer, or we want to do that fun stuff that came in. We don't want to be stuck in, oh no, we have to wait 3 months to make a new decision, or we don't have budget within marketing. We have budget over there in the other silo, so we can't do anything. We can't help you market your campaign or your new product, so because there's no budget left. So you need to change those structures so that you can make new decisions continuously, and that you can reallocate budget, money, people, resources to wherever it should be right now, so you can say yes to the dance and don't have to say yes or no to new businesses. And to be able to do this, a lot of times we need to change our budgeting process. So instead of having, as we do when we do traditional budgeting, we have target, resource allocation, and prognosis boxed all together with the same number. We need to split it up and separate these 3 things. So we have impact goals. How would we like it to be in the future? What are the things that we would like to see improve or change, or maybe maintain? And who would be working with what? What teams would be working with what? What are the things that are most important, and where should they be focusing? And how many people do we need? How many teams do we need? And when we have an agile organization, we think of teams. So it's much easier to do resource allocation. We don't work on individual levels. We don't tell who should be doing what. We talk with the team and see, what are you guys working on? Is that in connection to the strategy? Okay, good. So how many people will you need? Do you need 2 teams or 1 team to be able to deliver what's on your plate? And prognosis, what will happen looking forward, and look at different ways what could happen, and continuously do that to be able to make new decisions, instead of just doing it maybe quarterly or something, which doesn't really help you, and that will not maybe help you to make the best decisions, because you will only see in the end what went wrong usually. And if we separate these processes, then we can continuously improve each process here. So we can try OKRs, we could try bets, we can try different ways of setting our impact goals and working with our strategy. If we don't do this, if we don't separate these processes, it's going to be super, super tricky. And we want our goals to be inspiring and brave, as we talked about. We want them to be VUCA robust so that we can adapt when things change. And it's okay that we see things differently because we will prototype and test and have learnings. So it's possible to know where we're going. We have ways of understanding if we're doing better or worse on things. And they should be objective and look at what's the impact that we're looking for here. And not in detail, of course. So if we can work with hypothesis, if it's very difficult to understand what are the things that we need to do, we can create hypotheses, and that will help us to experiment. So setting these up in a way that we can experiment will help us then handle VUCA in a much better way. And resource allocation, like we talked about, enable pull so that the teams can see what are the most important things, what are the things that we need to work at and focus on and spend our hours on. Helps you to also create a better process all the time and give the mandate and the responsibility to the people working with the customer and delivering stuff and who needs to make decisions and have the latest information so that they can make the best decisions possible. And adjust your organization and the teams continuously based on the goals that you have and what's most prioritized. And if you have a highly agile organization, they could maybe adjust themselves, but they need to know where we're going and what's most important. And then prognosis, make it dynamic and never in detail and scenario based if you can. So you can see 3 different scenarios. It's the best, the worst, and in the middle. And what are the things we could do if the worst or the best will happen. And KPIs to help us and guide us towards that impact. And if the teams take ownership over the goals and what to deliver to reach them, they also need to have responsibility over the KPIs. So maybe changing KPIs based on what they're doing, if that's helping them to know what's going on. And then you can monitor trends instead. That will help you make better decisions moving forward. Instead of just looking what happened backwards in the what do you call it, the mirror in the car where you see the back. You don't want to do that when you drive the car. You want to see out the window and to be able to make decisions. So you move from having same numbers, different purposes, to different numbers, and then be event driven, not calendar driven. And this will help you to enable a more flexible and dynamic organization and planning. And we talked about a little bit about prognosis, or I did. I talk a lot, and I will soon be done. And instead of doing the traditional prognosis where we do a year and a quarters, and at the end we just, this is the money that we have left, what have we done? We just want to make it more dynamic, and depending on how high speed you are in, how much VUCA you have, you might want to make those prognosis shorter and shorter. If it's high speed and something's changing all the time and you can't understand what's going to happen, you want to decrease the time in between those prognoses, of course, to enable agility. So it could be very different in different organizations. And we want to reward those behaviors that we find valuable. And many times we need to reward collaboration instead of working as an individual. So in many organizations, you might have individual goals put on you yearly that are also in connection to a project delivery. So if you do that, then you put this, this iron stick right through the organization. They will not be able to move, because if I don't work on what I promised my manager, I will not be rewarded with a bonus or whatever. And then the product owner, product manager can't change the plans because people will work on different things anyway, and they will just feel bad and not rewarded for the good work they did. So if you want to become a highly agile organization, you need to change your rewards and how you incentive people. So rewarding collaboration, rewarding other things, and look at rewards in a different way than previously. It should not be salary, and it might not need to be money either. It could be something else, of course. So build the culture that you want to have to enable people to feel safe and to do what's most valuable. So think about what's the minimum viable bureaucracy in your organization and where you're at? Can you cut away those things that doesn't help and that's hindering you? And of course, there will be some stuff that is needed. How can you make them as good as possible instead? Set ambitious targets, start small, learn quickly, but most importantly, start now. And if you still haven't got your executive leadership team with you, help them to get on the boat as quickly as possible, I would say. So adjust the system and enable the employees to become heroes, the heroes they are. They should be the heroes in the organization to help the customers in the best way possible. And that's my last slide.